It's summertime and rum is inevitable right here on Liquid Gold. Welcome back. My name's Mike Wolf, your host today. Shout out to producer Michael Eads and everybody at We Own This Town, the We Own This Town podcast network. And today we are going to be getting into all things rum once again with our friend Adrienne Stoner. Adrienne's an on-premise manager of Maison Ferrand out of Chicago, Illinois, and is also doing a lot for cane advocacy in Barbados, where the beautiful plantation rums come from. So we get into that today with Adrienne in part 2 of our interview with her, and just really enjoyed this discussion. We're going to hear the story of Plantation Pineapple, how that came about, as well as OFTD. These are stalwarts of the rum mixing world these days, and Adrienne knows all about these rums. She's worked with them for years. She's got a lot of cool stories. We're also going to hear a lot about Barbados, because I wanted to know, what's it like down there? I've never been down there. I've always wanted to go, but I wanted to know, what are people eating? What are these huts like on the beach where you go and, buy your rum and have a party at your own table? It sounds great. So we're going to hear about that stuff from Adrienne and hear all about her cane advocacy and cane to cocktail knowledge that she is throwing down. Also, something as I was going back through the episode that really stuck out to me was talking about how the technology has advanced so much in cane processing and molasses production. They're starting to run the risk of affecting the flavor and not having the flavor be quite as pungent and tasty. That was something interesting we get into a little bit, technology versus flavor. And we're getting real about rum today. All right, couple notes here. My book, Bartenders, Recipes, Tips, and Stories to Enjoy at Home. As a lot of people are seeing around the country and around the world, supply chain issues, even with the vermouth that I've been making with Love and Exile wine, we've had a hard time getting the bottles that we need for them. There's just there's log jams going on all over the place, and that is the same with printing presses and factories that produce these books. So the book, long story short, is going to be released July 20th now. So just push back a couple weeks. Hopefully I'll have one in my hand here in about a month or so. Can't wait to share that with you. Over 55 different bartenders are in this book, as well as Adrienne Stoner, who's on the show today. Now, let me grab her recipe that's in here. I want to give it to you, because this is your summer frozen daiquiri right here, okay? I'm going to give it to you. And I was really excited to see what Adrienne might submit for her recipe, being a big fan of her bartending over the years, as she was at Lost Lake and at Three Dots and a Dash. But this was her. She says in the book, and I quote, "This drink was a fun frappe-style daiquiri I put together. It's bittersweet, much like my time spent during the pandemic. The rum has changed a few times depending on what's in my house." And I can tell you from the Zoom interview that we did, she has an amazing selection of rum at the house. I could see it up there on the shelf. So for her frozen frappe-style daiquiri, it's 1 ounce of Angostura bitters. That's right. That's what the real bartenders do. 1 ounce, no dashes. Okay. 1.5 ounces coconut cream, 3/4 ounce plantation Jamaica rum, 3/4 ounce lime juice, 1/2 tablespoon raw turbinado sugar, 1.5 cups of crushed ice. That's great. That's great. That's a pro right there, giving you the measurements on the ice, because that's important with these frozen daiquiris. So 1.5 cups crushed ice. All right, we got that. 1 fresh mint sprig and a lime wheel for the garnish. Blend all ingredients except the garnish in a blender until cold. Serve in a large coupe glass or any glass fit for paradise. Garnish with mint and a lime wheel. Boom. Pretty easy recipe. A really fun recipe with all those Angostura bitters. Try that out. And you can always see, you could throw in a 1/2 ounce of pineapple juice. You could throw in a little bit of orange curacao, maybe Bermuda Yacht Club it up. Throw in a little falernum. Throw in a syrup that you made. There's so many different things you can do with your summer frozen daiquiri. So have at it. Get back to us. Email us liquidgoldpod@gmail.com. Let us know your summer daiquiri that you'll be making. And as always, you can follow us and hit us up on Instagram at liquidgold_pod. All right, without further ado, let's throw things over to part 2 of our interview with Adrienne Stoner. We start things off getting into the story behind Plantation Pineapple. I'll never forget the first time that a rep came into Husk and they were like, I got something you got to try. It's delicious. It might not be for you guys, but you need to try it. It's so good. And they lay down a bottle of the pineapple rum, Stiggins Fancy Pineapple Rum from Plantation. And I remember trying it with a few of the guys at the bar and stuff, and it was just incredible, blew us away. It became a phenomenon in the cocktail world. Got to be to the point maybe a year later, we're like, are we going to be able to get any of that pineapple rum? Because we're kind of wanting some. Can you tell me a little bit about the story? Like, what makes that stuff so delicious? Why was it such a phenomenon?
Yeah, well, the pineapple rum was supposed to be a one-off thing. It was really just created to give as a gift for the apprentice bartenders, the caps at Tales of the Cocktail. But yeah, those apprentice bartenders, they work so hard, really just like 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. They don't sleep. It's grueling work. And, at the end of the year, usually all the brand folks, all the suppliers just like unload all of their booze and try to give away all their swag. Well, we wanted to give something fun, like a little gift. We wanted to like create something. So we decided to come up with a pineapple rum for a couple reasons. One, because David Wondrich had shown us this character from Charles Dickens. And it was this reverend who would, go around preaching like sobriety and abstinence, but secretly always had like a little infusion in his pocket. It was drinking.
Wow.
He was drinking the whole time. And we thought that was kind of cute. We're like, well, we could do like a little pineapple infusion because pineapple is the symbol of hospitality. So what better way to treat the hardworking bar staff, right? So we just did a one-off thing, gave it out, and then it was really popular. So people started asking, like, when are you going to get this? Like, when's the next batch? And we're like, we weren't planning on making another batch. That wasn't going to be a thing.
You're like, we got to go to the store and get some pineapples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like that's the long version of that story, I guess. But the production itself is really unique, I think. And that's what makes the product stand out, is that it's, we're taking the skin of the pineapple, the Queen Victoria pineapples, and we're taking just the skin part and infusing it with a white rum with our blend for 3-star before it's taken down to bottling. And then we redistill that infusion. So we're kind of like accentuating it, we're distilling it so that we get the essence of the pineapple without being a fruit bomb. While that's happening, we're infusing the fleshy part of the pineapple with our original dark rum. So we blend the two together, the original dark infusion and then the fresh distillate. So
amazing.
It's just a unique kind of production style, and it's not, it's real pineapple. It's not artificially flavored. So I think that carries over. But because we do have that fresh distillate, it has like the fresh pineapple scent on the nose without being a sugar bomb. And,
well, there's so much cool yeast and flavors that are in the pineapple skins and it's cool. People are really starting to use more and make their own Tapache. We did a Tapache recipe on our Bubbles episode. You can go back and check that out.
Yeah.
Tapache is amazing and a great way to use up.
So good.
Yeah, we could tie that into your new sustainability focus over there. So that's a great story. And there's plenty of things, and people have been making cocktails with that pineapple rum for a long time. Before we get into more sustainability type stuff, the OFTD is also a great story because that's become a favorite of bartenders. It's super overproof and yet somehow tastes like top shelf bourbon mixed with, I don't even know what heaven, but heaven and danger, heaven and hell. I don't know. It's like a metal song.
Yeah.
So it was called OFTD, and I always heard that was originally, oh fuck, that's delicious.
True story.
So can you tell me a little bit more about that story of that?
Yeah, we got a bunch of guys together, like the modern kind of rum icons of our industry. So we had Dave Wondrich and Martin Cate and Jeff Beach Bum Berry and Paul McGee, of course, Scotty Shooter from Dirty Dicks, and Paul McFadden from Trailer Happiness, and of course Alex Zahn. So they had to come together and come up with a blend for this rum. It was kind of a partnership. And of course, like, oh, what a horrible job, right? Like, let's all get together and just drink all of the rum and play with it for like weeks until we get it right. So they had to agree on a blend. And if you know anything about any rum people in general, and certainly like tiki purveyors, they're not like, they don't back down, right? Everyone has opinion.
Yeah.
We can't even agree on how to make a Mai Tai. So
right.
You know, to have these guys sit in a room together and nail down a blend was not an easy task, but probably a fun one. And they were going around tasting things, and near the end of the tasting, Dave Wondrich was rumored to have tasted the last concoction and said, "Oh fuck, that's delicious." And they're like, "That's it, we're done. That's what we're putting on the bottle." Like, nailed it, green light. But you can't put swear words on bottles because of TTB. So we called it old fashioned traditional dark instead. Or as I like to say, oh, fuck, that's dangerous, because it is.
Yeah, right.
It's dangerous. It's too delicious for the proof, frankly. It's better than it has any right being.
Right. And it's a great story, because if you drink enough of that kind of thing, you actually will trick yourself into thinking that you can put on a bottle, oh fuck, that's delicious, and they're like, we got it, we're done, oh great job, everybody. And then like the next day they're like,
pat ourselves on the back.
Oh wait, we can't call it that.
Nope. Can't.
It's like, sounded like a good idea at the time. It is, it's great. It's something to be aware of when you're drinking. It's high proof, it's overproof, it's in the name, but it can add a lot to tropical cocktails, to zombies. I know we're using a lot of it in the zombie. You can add it to even float it over a Mai Tai, like we were saying, and it adds a very rich and really powerful note. So if you feel good about like the other flavors that you're using, if you have like a little bit of orange juice, a little bit of pineapple, maybe some nice lime, you have some good rum, you have a flavor that you think is great, maybe a little banana, and then you throw that in there, it just like lens, it's just like, oh yeah, this is a cocktail, this is a rum drink, this is serious business.
And so perfect for, you know, tropical, because of its like multi-island. It's well, not island, right? Guyana's not an island, but having this blend of rums to begin with, it's just layered. It's already layered in and of itself. So it just brings a new depth to anything that you're putting it in.
A lot of the rums that you talk about on a daily basis are from Barbados.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. Which I feel like they get credited with inventing rum.
They do.
So are you working at the birthplace of rum?
Yeah. I mean, not directly, but I have the privilege. I have the privilege, the task and privilege of working alongside our team at West Indies Rum Distillery. So we're fortunate enough to acquire that distillery, which was part of another acquisition, the NRJ. So we are 1/3 of the ownership in Jamaica of Clarendon and Long Pond. We share that with the Jamaican government and also DDL. But then in Barbados, we are in full production control, but we have the team there that's been there since the beginning, just killing it. So Don Ben, who's been the distiller there, the master distiller there for over 20 years. Dario, Jordan, who's just amazing wizard of fermentation. We have a really, really cool team there, and I am always thankful that I get to have any participation in that work.
Well, let's talk about what's it like in Barbados. You get there, you probably got a pretty cool place to stay. Palm trees swaying in the breeze. But what's it like there on the island? What are some things that you're eating? What are some of the drinks that you saw? Like, oh, the locals are drinking this. What are people doing there?
It's warm. It's about the same temperature every day. They usually kind of luck out with hurricanes because of where they're positioned. They don't really get too many ugly weather patterns, which is nice. It's a small island as well, and kind of the south end of it, there's bigger hills and forest area, and then where we're located, the distillery is kind of near Bridgetown, but not in the city proper. Our distillery is on the water. we always joke, but it's not actually a joke, that our manager, if he needs a break on lunch, you just go out to have a swim. And we've done that, for our work meetings. When we have our, week long work meetings in Barbados, we'll take lunch breaks in the water.
Wow.
Just have a quick swim and then get back to it. But it's
what's the water like? Is it clear and beautiful?
It's perfect. It's clear. It's perfect. I mean, the people are so nice. Everyone there is so nice. There's this really great bar. I got to give them a shout out. It's called Chicken George. It's
cool. Chicken George.
My favorite place. It's a hut. Technically, it's like a little hut with a bunch of other huts right on the beach. And at night it turns into like a karaoke bar. You can order food there, although I've never ordered food there. I usually get there a little too late and just stay much, much later. But yeah, great owner there. There's plenty of great bars. I mean, the culture.
What are they drinking in those bars, would you say?
You order, they're called rum shops. So you buy the full bottle, so you buy a bottle and then you can buy the mixers separate, and then they'll give you like a little ice bin or like a little mini cooler. And then you take that to your table and you share. And it's customary if you buy a bottle for somebody, they'll buy you a bottle, and it's just like rude not to. So you just that's just the trade. Like, it's just a way of saying thank you. So there's a lot of like bottle sharing.
You're like looking at your bill the next day and you're like, did I buy 8 bottles of rum at that place?
Yeah. I mean, you can get different sizes, you can get a fifth, you can get little minis. But yeah, people just buy full bottles of rum, maybe like a crisp beer. It's just a super casual place. I think the food, there's different kind of varieties of barbecue. I've had like chicken, certainly, and lots of seafood.
How's he cooking the chicken at Chicken?
There's like
must have a thing,
like a smoker situation.
Yeah, okay.
There's like Kermit's. They have good food. Or Wendy's. I don't want
Wendy's.
Yeah,
not double stack Wendy's. We're talking
no
Wendy's of Barbados.
It's kind of like a soccer bar. They just call it football. But
it seems like those are the best bars in different islands. Like my wife and I went to St. Croix a long time ago, and was talking to one of our guests who we had on a couple months ago when we had Darcy O'Neill on. He was talking about seeking out this special cinnamon that grew on the island of St. Croix. And this great bartender who was showing him around, they ended up going to the same bar that my wife and I went to, which was like a shack in the middle of the rainforest where they have like their own moonshine. And it seems like when you find those kind of places, that's where you need to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Barbados has, you'll see a lot of like cola tonic and Maube syrup.
Oh, yeah.
Is very common there as like a mixer for cocktails. And
Maube is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's like it's basically a bark that you can make into a syrup that's similar to like a Coca-Cola type flavor, almost like a sassafras, but it definitely has its own flavor, sort of Dr. Pepper-ish. But yeah, fascinating. I guess it's common neighborhoods around, I think it was Brooklyn.
Yeah, there's a couple Caribbean markets here in the city, so that I do have access. I've like played around with it or made syrups, but
that's cool.
Yeah. Another thing, coconut. You got to get coconut.
Yeah.
In Barbados, they have coconut. And, I'm in Chicago. So if I get access to fresh coconut water.
Are they serving drinks out of the coconuts in some of those places?
Yeah, sometimes. Not as often. I mean, cocktail culture isn't really, there are cocktail bars, but I think the local hang is not, fancy cocktails. It's like it's a rum shop. There are cocktail bars. I don't want to say that. One of our friends there, Damien, he's a really great bartender and he makes cool cocktails and always knows like where the cool places are. So anytime I'm in town, I got to hit him up and say like, what's going on this weekend? Like, where's the party at? But
do they claim rum in Barbados as like their thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a sense of pride. I wouldn't say it's not boastful. I think like Bajan culture, like Barbadians that I've met are so humble and so it's just like accepted. It's just like a part of who you are. It's a part of your upbringing and it's just a part of your history. It's not it's not something to brag about or like fight about. I think
Yep.
every country I've been to that makes rum says that their rum is the best. But it's nothing to fight about,
Right. They're just proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah, just proud, just generally proud.
Pretty amazing. Now, you're sort of taking on some new stuff there with the company and getting into more of a advocacy role as it pertains to sustainability, the processing of cane. I feel like you could go back to the roots of rum as like a sustainable product itself. Obviously, there's a long way to go over the last, 400, 500 years. But what are some things that you're focusing on in that new role?
My focus with rum these days, because I guess the more I learn about rum, the more I want to share with the world, with my friends and with, buyers and, consumers. Like, I just want to talk about it, and I want people to think about rum and give it the same respect they would give any other spirit or any other, beverage, like the way we talk about wine, and we are so careful talking about organic consumption, and we never really think about these things with rum. I've found that there's this gap in the thought process of spirit production. So we'll use words like hand cut, and in other production, no shade to wine production, harvesting wine grapes is difficult work too, but it's nothing like the labor that goes into cutting cane. And so, I just want people to be mindful about what the marketing material is behind rum, because there's a disconnect. The commodities market of sugar and molasses trade has kind of separated itself from the rum world, and the rum world focuses on like brand education and kind of marketing, and then the marketing machine kind of controls consumer thought, and everything is separate. So while I'm looking at the big picture as someone who's been a part of all of seeing that education, first seeing it firsthand, seeing those things in action, and then, wanting to share that with the world. But it's just not, when I go to Barbados and we want to see a sugar mill, the sugar mill operators don't get it. They don't understand why we even care, right? Like, they think it's just like, it's boring. Like, why would you want to come here? Why, this isn't a tourist attraction. Like, they don't understand why anyone involved with rum. And I try to explain this to my buyers. Like, buyers want to know these things, but it's just a world that's been kept separate, sometimes intentionally, but also just like because they see their work as a factory. There are distilleries that are really huge production that are more industrialized, and they don't offer tours. And for the same reason, they say, we don't have a fancy tourist facility. This is a plant. This is like a working machine. I mean, people could certainly come through here with hard hats, but why? They don't understand why anyone would even want to see the day-to-day kind of operations of something that scale. And so I want to show the full breadth of the experience of rum production, from cane to cocktail, like talking about where sugar cane is from, how it gets processed, how that molasses comes into market. Sometimes it's commodities market. Sometimes you know exactly where you're purchasing it. And if you want to buy ethically and source ethically, you have to follow the chain. You have to know exactly who you're purchasing from. And that's not really an option in, the grand commodities market of sugar sales. So it's a choice. It's a choice that producers have to make to say, like, we want to do the right thing, and we want to make sure that we're getting molasses from sources we can trust.
Yeah. So what happens? You're on the island of Barbados, arguably home of rum. There's some sugar cane. It's ready to be cut. In and of itself, like, kind of, to me, I'm a romantic guy. I look at the romance in things. So I see that as like this beautiful thing. You're cutting cane on the island where rum came from. You're going to turn it into rum at some point. But I know there's so much more to it than that. It's a tough process. It's a tough job all around. But what happens to the cane once it gets cut?
Yeah. Well, sometimes the cane isn't always hand cut. Sometimes it's machine cut, usually dependent on just the lay of the land, the geography. If it's too hilly, you can't really move a machine through there to cut it. The machine looks like the Gene Krupa, like for anyone that remembers Nintendo, but those two spires that kind of like turn into themselves and they cut at the root and then they chop it into a bunch of little pieces. So sometimes you can't use that machine because it doesn't, the land isn't flat enough, or you just don't have a big enough plot to necessitate something that size, or it's a financial reason, right? Because these machines are expensive and the equipment is heavy, and if something breaks down, you have to import all the parts. And so there are various reasons. Sometimes it's hand cut. When it's hand cut, it's obviously cut in not as small of pieces because the machine is very efficient and can cut in many pieces. But hand cut, it can be put on a truck, or sometimes it's carried by animal, which is, kind of less and less the case. But yeah, usually put on a truck and then taken to the sugar mill. And the sugar mill will break down and extract all of the sugar cane juice. It'll go through its process, rip it in a centrifuge. You got the little crystals at the end, and the leftover waste material is the molasses. The problem is the more efficient sugar mills become because of advances in technology, like very thankful for the advances in technology. But what that means is that the molasses is getting worse for rum because there's not as much sugar left. There's not as much sugar content remaining in the molasses. So that's also affecting rum production and rum producers' access to molasses. So everyone's kind of scrambling to figure out where's the next molasses source. In Barbados, there is still one sugar mill left, and there is still some sugar production. Not as much, obviously, as back in the day, or even as old as the 80s. I think there was another sugar mill that closed in, I want to say, the early 2000s, but there's just one left at this moment, and we buy as much as we can. I mean, you're paying a premium for ethically sourced and ethically produced molasses, but there just isn't enough in Barbados for not even just us. I mean, there's 4 distilleries on the island. Like there just isn't enough, and that's kind of the same for most of the Caribbean. There's production in Jamaica. Some of those producers also have to outsource. And so rum producers are getting molasses from lots of other places. From Dominican Republic is a big one. Guatemala is a big one. There's a lot of sugar production in Mexico, Nicaragua. Brazil does have a ton. They have some of, I think, maybe the most sugar production in the world, but they don't sell to a lot of rum producers. Just from like market value, it's cheaper to get at other places, and they keep a lot for themselves. And then they also sell a lot ethanol. The trade is elaborate. It's kind of layered like an onion. Like there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of reasons why agriculture is kind of suffering in the Caribbean, and why there isn't a lot of focus put on sugar. And part of it is just the asking price cannot compete with the international market. There's like tax agreements, there's trade agreements that make it more profitable for other production avenues and other producers to get better pricing. And so everyone is kind of scrambling, right? Like it's a race to the bottom to be able to match a bottle price once you get to market, and it's a problem.
So do you guys need more cane being grown and harvested on the island of Barbados, or do you feel like you need more sugar mills, or is it kind of like a little bit of both? Is this part of rum growing as a category as well?
I don't think it's because rum is growing that there's a molasses shortage. There's just not as much focus. I think the commodities trade, what commodities market has kind of done to cheapen the value of sugar and the value of molasses, is what's kind of altering access. So I don't think it's because we're making more rum. You can grow sugar anywhere, right? Like if we couldn't get it on a small island like Barbados, there's plenty of other warm places that could easily produce sugar. But the sugar itself, I mean, how much people are consuming sugar and kind of the undervaluing of the product to begin with is what's kind of cutting the deal. Like, how profitable can you be as a company if your base material costs this much, right? Like if the premium is set too high for your base material, you might have a hard time competing with bottle prices and staying competitive. And so that's kind of why I think if we focus a little bit more as purveyors of the spirit category, as a brand ambassador, as a bartender, as a consumer, and really kind of digging into the root of these products and talking about where they're from and really having awareness about this process, that in and of itself will create a kind of next level respect. Because we can talk about respect for rum, we can talk about how much we love the cultures of rum, and how we drink it, and the experience of it, and we can talk about production styles and tasting notes, but none of those things really highlight the base material. And if we really want to respect rum and the spirit as a whole, I think we need to respect the labor where it starts.
Yeah.
So that felt like a soapbox.
No, it's good.
Yeah, I get,
you got one.
I started working with Bon Sucro to really kind of figure out how their process works. And Bon Sucro, for folks that don't know about it, it's kind of like the fair trade of just sugar, but it's more than that. I mean, it's true they only focus on sugar and kind of like the chain of custody of sugar production, molasses sales, etc. And I've been working with their Latin America's manager, Miguel Hernandez, and trying to kind of show that the bar world and that the rum production world has something to offer in this conversation, that we have something of value to add, because, they never really focused on final consumer. They don't come from a place of like, get the packaging on your, get the fancy label on your bottle or whatever. It's always been about, hitting the source of the issue at the sugar mill, in the farm, and making sure that the labor is protected and that they're using sustainable environmental practices and proper waste management and doing in-person audits. And so they were already doing that work and trying to highlight the need for that education for people like me and for bartenders to really know what that labor even looks like, what that production even really looks like, and why we should be thinking about it, and how all of what we do is a part of that chain of custody, right? Like, how do we have a small part of impact in that world?
It's kind of amazing. Wow. It's fascinating stuff. Because I feel like rum is a misunderstood category and is, of all the different spirit categories, I do feel like rum is maybe the most misunderstood, sort of cast off. Now that I know that's changing, and I'm kind of generalizing, because over the past 4 or 5 years, I would say, people who like a cocktail, or people who do explore different things to drink and think about the things that are going in their glasses, have become more aware of different rums. The beautiful 4-square rums, I think, have helped with people like appreciating like top shelf rums, things like that. But yeah, do you feel like rum is just this misunderstood category, and what is it about it that like the party beverage thing?
It gets like a lot of party connotation. Honestly, I think the party connotation is it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, I think it's great that rum has this unique added experience that, unlike other spirits, you will have a positive trigger when you drink a rum from a place that you had that experience. You'll have, like, I used to serve people and they'd be like, oh, I went to Barbados on my honeymoon. You could give them any Barbados rum and they will have that experience again.
Yeah.
It's about the place, and it's about the rum from that place. Same with Jamaican, right? Such a signature style of rum. It doesn't have to be a specific brand from Jamaica. They'll have a Jamaican rum and be like, instantly they're there, like, love Jamaican rum. I remember going there, having this experience. And so having, like I said, it's like the double-edged sword. I mean, I'll meet people all day who say they don't like rum, but they'll drink it on vacation and have great experiences, right? Like, on the other side of that is, people don't see it as a quality beverage. I think that's changed a lot in the last, even 5 years, but we'll get there. Whiskey is like default for America because it's the American spirit. We, bourbon is so American. It's so synonymous with our identity as Americans, but Americans were drinking rum first. And, we need to put some respect on that name and on that history, that, like, when did we stop loving rum? When it stopped being cheap to make? Is that when it was game over? And I
we were making a lot of rum over here too, right?
Yeah, we were making a lot of rum. The New England's making a lot of rum, and obviously, the entire world of rum changed after abolition, right? Like we cannot sustain sugar production on the backs of slavery. So how do we rephrase this work? How do we see rum in the future? And I think that kind of also changed where rum was headed, and giving whiskey, this whiskey change, this takeover in the 1800s is kind of still where we're at today, is that whiskey is the American spirit. Here we are. But with no shade against whiskey, I actually have a lot of questions about barrels. This is something I think about often, about like laws, like the whiskey rules, and that it always had to be American oak. I'm one of the people who really doesn't care for new American oak aging, which makes me not a great bourbon drinker. I like bourbon, okay, but there's always this like, it's American oak. It's that fresh American oak that gets me every time. And when that rule went into play, it was partially paid for by lobbyists in the lumber, in the lumber world. So I think about these things like what did rum taste like? How were they aging it? What were the barrels in the 1800s and the early 1800s, or even the late 1800s?
I wonder if were they charring them like as much as to the level they are now? They were probably reusing them quite a bit.
Definitely reusing. I mean, I'm sure no one was throwing anything out. And then if they were, traveling rum from like the Caribbean to the like colonizer continent, or whatever country, like they were taking rum from Barbados to England. I mean, there's definitely history on this. I'm not so dumb that like there aren't books written about it, but I just think we need to keep that in focus, that like rum is a part of American history. It's a part of the Western history. It changed the Western world.
Definitely. I used to make these it's not a great name now that I think about it, but I just used to call it Colonial bitters because I found them in some old book about that was talking about rum and how people used to make these bitters in colonial times in New England, where they were just taking like some of the herbs they had dried up in the kitchen, maybe some herbs from the garden, something outside, and just taking that, infusing that into a bottle for like 2 months, straining it out, and that was their bitters, that they would use for medicine and things like that. So I used to play around with that and actually used OFTD on some of them in making these like bitters mixtures. And it was great because you got that little bit of like sweetness where you're typically adding that into bitters recipes. You're typically adding something sweet later, but the sugar cane had like a cool flavor element to it as well. So I'd recommend if anybody wants to try making their own bitters at home, you could try something simple like that. Take an OFTD, soaking a bunch of stuff from your pantry and herbs from the garden or the store, and you could probably come up with a really cool bitters mixture. But yeah, it was such a part of the culture back then. People were drinking tons of rum, making tons of rum, making things with it. Yeah.
I don't want to shy away from talking about rum history and also rum present, right? Like sugar production today is still kind of ugly. Like there's still places where you can find modern day slavery. I mean, we need to be very clear about what this work looks like and who the, like we just have to be conscious of our purchasing decisions, not just rum brand, but, as rum producers, we need to talk about the open market and say like, it is no longer acceptable to just like buy molasses on a commodities trade. We should know the source. We should be able to meet the sugar mill operators and, go to these places and know that what we're making is ethically sound. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the hope. But
that's really cool. That's kind of what you're advocating for.
Yeah.
In your advocacy role. It's pretty awesome.
It was kind of like a pet project that is developing, and I was thankful to have, kind of just full open transparency and open dialogue with Bon Sucro, and they've been very helpful to answer any questions. And I've talked to some like sugar mill operators, and and then I'm like building relationships with people in Dominican Republic, and just trying to like stay organized and stay connected, because I think this is the missing link, that we haven't shown each other who we really are and how we're using each product on its journey in the chain of custody, right? Like in its little channel, right?
Yeah.
That, the sugar mill operator doesn't know what rum producers are doing with their branding, or how they're selling their rum, and maybe they just don't care, or maybe it's just never been a thing. They're just like, I make a thing and I do the thing and then the thing's over. I don't want to simplify anybody's job. It's just that like I think as rum brand people, it's tunnel vision. We see one side of production. Bartenders see one side we see the marketing package that they want us to see. And I hope that collectively we can all be out there asking bigger questions and just holding ourselves accountable as consumers.
Yeah.
Like, where is this coming from? Like, I just want to know.
And how are people being treated?
Yeah. And if the answer is uncomfortable, that's the problem. If the answer is hard to come by or not easily attainable, then that's the problem. We should have answers for these questions. It shouldn't be an uncomfortable, like, questionable thing. It's just like, we're running a business, or I'm interested in buying a thing, or I like drinking this thing. Where's it from?
Yeah.
It's capitalism, it's consumerism, but like there's still a way to do this the right way. Like we shouldn't be afraid.
Right. Making ethical choices about what you buy and who you support.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I've kept you too long here. But appreciate your time and your passion. And everything you're doing to advocate about sugarcane and all the beautiful products you've got at Maison Ferrand. Adrienne Stoner of Chicago, Illinois. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Really enjoyed that talk with Adrienne Stoner. Thanks so much to her for coming on and talking about all things rum. You can connect with her as she comes to Nashville every once in a while. She'll be back during the summer. She was just here doing an event with Friends of Rum Tennessee. You can find them on Instagram and find out about tastings, virtual tastings that they're doing. Really cool stuff. A lot of great rums that they're talking about and they're doing different events with. So check them out. Follow along. And I've got an event to talk about that's coming up 2 weeks from tomorrow. This is airing on Friday, May 28th, and the event is June 12th, Saturday, June 12th, at Tattered Cover Bookstore in Denver, Colorado. Just a thrill to be back there. My hometown and my hometown bookstore. A lot of great memories there, shopping for books, for gifts, and it was always such an amazing place to visit, a place to take family and friends, people who are visiting. Tattered Cover is just an institution out there, so I'm really excited to do an event all talking about Garden to Glass, my book that came out November 2019, and I'll also be discussing a little bit putting together the book Bartenders, which Adrienne Stoner is in. I gave that frozen daiquiri recipe at the front of the show, so go back and check that out. But yeah, I'll be at the Tattered Cover Saturday, June 12th at 2:30 p.m. There's still a slight possibility that it will be a virtual event, but we're hoping that it's in store, so we'll see how that goes. And lots more content to come. We've got a fun episode coming up on the Summer of Shots, getting kicked off here with Jeremiah Blake, a legend of Nashville bartending. We talk about the Daisy. That'll be our next episode, as well as talking about a few of his famous concoctions from his time at Holland House, Green Hour, Bastion. So really looking forward to that. My name's Mike Wolf, and we will see you next time right here on Liquid Gold.